Hi, everybody. I'm Anoli. I'm the creative content coordinator at Forge. Forge is the National Trans Anti-Violence Organization. We support trans survivors of trauma. And this is part 2 of a 6-part series about pronouns and how to navigate pronouns. This one is on what are the singular pronouns they, them, and why should we use them? So we'll be talking today about these topics, and you can view the rest of the series on the URL on the slide and in the comment section of this video. And the rest of the series covers other tips around pronoun use. So it'll both be in the link and on our website, forgeforward.org. So what are they, them pronouns? So a few key pieces of information. They are gender neutral, meaning that they could refer to someone of any gender, and they are singular pronouns, just like he, him, she, her, and the somewhat less common singular gender neutral pronoun thesier. So here's an example of a sentence using they, them pronouns. They are in their late 20s, working and applying to graduate school. So in the same place that you would use he or she in a sentence, you could use they. So just kind of to describe what this slide looks like. So we have 3 circles. The largest circle says non-binary people, and it is intersecting in the style of a Venn diagram with 2 other circles, one that says men and one that says women. And in the place that all of these circles intersect, it says they, them pronouns. And so people of all genders use all kinds of pronouns, but non-binary people of all kinds are probably a bit more likely to use they, them pronouns than other folks, which is why that circle is a little bit bigger, the non-binary people circle. So now we'll cover what we mean by non-binary. Non-binary is itself an umbrella term, a larger category for folks who don't identify exclusively as male or female. Some subcategories of non-binary include agender, which means neither or no gender, gender fluid, which means moving between genders, third gender, another gender in addition to male or female, and gender queer, which is something outside the binary as well. This photo is of Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye, who recently came out as non-binary. Another interesting fact is that non-binary people make up the largest percentage of folks under the broader trans/non-binary umbrella. So most trans folks are non-binary. Revisiting this diagram, there are non-binary women and non-binary men too. And that might sound a bit contradictory, but there are people who identify as both non-binary and as men or women or other genders. So you just want to be clear that this is not an exclusive category. And so why do these people of varying genders that we've just covered, why do they go by singular they? So let's look at one first-person account. So one person shares, I go by singular they because it's not automatically gendered. So it's the pronoun that feels like it most represents me. It makes me feel comfortable in my skin, like I can breathe in a way that other pronouns don't. So you can see from this example that singular they, like other pronouns, help folks feel affirmed and seen as they are, right? That's a role that pronouns serve for all of us. But sometimes singular they unfortunately gets more pushback from other pronouns, than other pronouns. And so this video introduces they, them pronouns, and it also kind of tries to respond to some of the pushback that they, them gets. So let's take a look together. We'll watch this for a couple of minutes, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Go by she, her. But there are also non-binary people who may not use either of those options. There are several different pronouns they might use, but the most common is they, them. So for example, instead of saying she went to the store to get some cookies for her friend, you would say they went to the store to get some cookies for their friend. Using they as a singular gender-neutral pronoun is actually widely accepted and grammatically correct. Both the AP and Chicago style guides recommend using whatever pronoun a person asks you to use for them, and that includes singular they. In fact, in that last sentence, I used the singular them to refer to one person, and it probably probably sounded perfectly natural to you. That's because singular gender-neutral they is already commonly in use to refer to singular pronouns like everyone or anybody or family. And it's also commonly in use to refer to a singular person whose gender you don't know yet. For example, in the sentence, everyone is here, the everyone is singular. It's not everyone are here, but when you refer back to everyone, you have to use they. So the sentence becomes, everyone is here, but are they ready? In this instance, they is referring to a singular pronoun, even though it's referencing multiple people. Native English speakers say stuff like this all the time. Singular they used in this way isn't new or abnormal. In fact, it's been used by Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, George Bernard Shaw, Jane Austen, and tons of other authors. The other common usage of singular they is when you don't yet know someone's gender. For example, listen to these sentences. Somebody fell in the parking lot earlier today. I hope they're okay. I'm getting a call from someone, but I don't know who they are. I heard that a teacher spent their own money on school supplies. When I meet someone new, I give them a high five. All of those sentences used the singular they or their or them. You can also use themself. In fact, Emily Dickinson used themself in 1881, and F. Scott Fitzgerald used themself in 1915, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. The Merriam-Webster also says that themself instead of themselves has been around since the late 1300s. It's not a new thing invented by trans people or millennials. It actually has a long history in the English language. The alternative to singular they in this instance is he or she, which some people do say, but it's just astoundingly awkward and long-winded to have to use two pronouns every time. Singular they does a lot to simplify this, and it leaves room for non-binary people who don't use he or she pronouns.
All right. Okay, so yeah, so I think Riley does a really effective job kind of responding to some of the pushback that we get around singular they. And so, yeah, so moving on. So why don't people use singular they more? Knowing how impactful they them pronouns are for people who prefer them. Yeah, why is that? So we're going to cover some of the widely held myths. So folks often say that they learned in school that you should never use a plural pronoun for just one person, that it's grammatically incorrect, right? And so, as Riley discussed, I think it really spelled out the most, there is a lot of precedent to use singular they in English going back thousands of years. Shakespeare used singular they, and organizations like Merriam-Webster and the Associated Press have officially deemed it grammatically correct, kind of put a stamp on it. So it absolutely is grammatically correct. And so another reason people don't use the singular they are because they feel like it's wrong or unfamiliar. They know that it just kind of feels funny in their mouth and they can't quite get it out right. This one I acknowledge might be true. New things, unfamiliar things can feel weird sometimes, but a big part of doing our job as victims, service providers, and allied professionals is to show respect and support toward our clients, as well as to prevent additional pain and violence. By normalizing they, them pronouns, we are showing respect and making the world a little safer for trans people. And I think that's worth feeling a little bit weird. Other elements of our job also can feel awkward at first, you know, like talking to people about their boundaries. But it gets better with practice. All right. So what about this idea that it's newfangled? So singular they may seem like a new trend that young people are using these days. But as Riley demonstrated, they, them is not new. Identifying with it because of one's gender is a little bit newer. But language is fluid and flexible. Look at all the words we've invented in our lifetimes to describe identities and name ourselves in the LGBT community and in all communities, and all the words we've repurposed and reclaimed. I think there's a beauty in that, which is why there's a rainbow on this slide. And lastly, people may wonder, how are you supposed to know when to use singular they? That's a really great question. The answer is that you have to ask. You have to ask folks what pronouns to use. In the next video in this series, we'll be exploring how to ask someone about their pronouns and normalize this process of learning what someone's pronouns are so that we can have respectful, supportive dialogue with our clients, our coworkers, and our loved ones. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this gave you a lot more information and yeah, and some helpful resources and fodder for how to engage with the singular they, how to use it in your daily life. This is part 2 of a 6-part series on pronouns. We'll have links to more resources below. We also have a ton of resources about supporting trans survivors of trauma at our website, forgeforward.org. If you have questions or want more dialogue, please contact us at the information on the screen, at the email address on the screen, askforge@forge-forward.org. We'll also have that in the description below the video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.